Okay, Joe Casey with Casey Aviation and the Malibu Guru Podcast, and I'm glad you're here today. Got a cool guy. We're going to talk about crawdads. We're going to talk about fish. We're going to talk about whiskey, and we're going to talk about these pictures in the back. I get so many people that ask me about these pictures behind us, but these are this is Dave Pauly, who, man, I found this picture that was hanging up in is a West Texas airport that had the picture up, and I just thought it was the coolest picture ever. Went and hunted it down and found a guy that just loves the Western United States, loves the old biplanes, and that's me. I just think that's cool. Anyway, Dave Pauly, great pictures behind us, and I've got a cool guy in front of me, Mike Frugé. You know, I remember when you first called me.
Okay, go ahead and tell me.
Yeah, I do. I remember when you first called me. Basically, you called me up because you had a really negative experience with your early day in the JetPROP. This is 11 years ago. I believe you've been hanging around me for 11 years, and I appreciate you hanging around me.
I'm still here.
You've gone to other instructors back and forth and all over, and all that's good. But you just come to see me often. I've always thought of you as one of these cool guys that just has kind of a neat story, and we're going to get to talk about that story. But and you live in Louisiana,
right?
And you raise crawdads, sell fish, make whiskey, and fly JetPROPs.
I do all that.
There you go.
Right. And I do more than that.
And you do more than that. Well, that's where maybe I'll eat some of that out of you.
Obsessive compulsive. You know.
There's not too many people with that on their resume.
It sounds confusing, but believe it or not, it's vertically integrated, as they say.
Vertically integrated.
Yeah. Starting
below the ground with the crawdads.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get to that in a minute. But I remember you called me, basically said, I had somebody tell me that you could take the power or the condition lever in a JetPROP because I'm taxiing too fast, and you can pull that back, and very much like you would do in a King Air, because a King Air truly does have a high and a low and a condition lever off. Yep. And you were told, hey, you can do that. And tell us, go down that story.
I think that story has to go back further.
Okay.
We grew up on a farm, worked on equipment, rebuilt engines, and around every type of piston engine you can imagine, built hot rods, you name it, very mechanically inclined, so very comfortable around equipment, but never heard of a turbine. I just knew it went faster.
Better.
More, it only turns in a circle. It's much safer. Everything about it is better. And I think during my initial training, I didn't comprehend the how bad things can go, how fast they can go. As you can't screw up a piston engine in 8 seconds. You got time to listen to it. You can do things. You can check things. You can overheat it, and then add some water to the radio, so on and so forth.
Right.
So the focus on the temperatures was just not instilled. So I think that's a piece that was missing. And I love to train. I love to fly, and I love to train. I love to train hard. So I went through my initial, and then I hired another guy who is a local instructor. I thought he was proficient, trained with him before. Can you train me in this?
Became insurance approved. Yeah. We're talking about a decade ago or more. So
whole deal. Yep. Yeah. So we're taxiing in my JetPROP, and I think most of them, they taxi pretty fast. If you just let them go, if you're not riding the brakes, you're going to be going 20 knots down the runway or taxiway, compared to a piston is double the speed or whatever.
Right.
So he was uncomfortable with how fast we were taxiing. He says, you need to pull the condition lever back. You're going too fast. I said, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And so he said, yeah, you just pull it back a little bit. So he did, and it worked. And we were going about half the speed. And, I started operating the plane like that. One day, I'm going down the taxiway. I guess I pulled it back a little too much. It started spooling down. Didn't think anything of it. Pushed it all the way forward. Fuel control lever. Kept spooling down, and all of a sudden, you know what happens. It ignites. We didn't have any flame out the exhaust, but it just screams
the
up.
ITT screams up.
ITT screams up and pegs at 1280 for 8 seconds. I didn't even know anything had happened. Didn't even concern me, literally. And but I knew Kevin Meade. He had done the pre-buy. I called him up and I said, "Hey, da-da-da-da-da," and I tell him the story, and he goes, "Oh no, like somebody died." I was the first to find out. I'm like, "What's wrong?" He said, "That's not good." Yeah, blah blah blah. And long story short, fried all the blades in the compressor.
Yeah.
Big paycheck. Write a big check. And I just bought the airplane. I'm a brand new pilot, so I'm about to die thinking I got to sell the airplane. It's just a horrible experience. And that's when I started looking for other people to train with.
and I got the call.
And you got the call.
There's a couple things here. Number one, I'm a King Air pilot. I'm very familiar with the high and the low idle settings, basically, where that exists. It does not exist in a JetPROP. Incidentally, ironically, it does exist in the brand new M600 and M700. Huh. You do have that ability, and that's nice, right. But not in a JetPROP, not in a Meridian, not in M500, and most M600s, no. Mm-hmm. So most of the people listening to this podcast, that doesn't exist. But it doesn't exist in a JetPROP for you.
Yeah, we know
Interestingly, Pratt & Whitney, I'm not sure if it's because of yours or because of something happened prior to that, but if you look into the maintenance manual, there's a chart called the inadvertent cutoff and relight chart.
That might be because of me. Seriously,
it might be your chart
because it wasn't there before.
You basically have a temp limit for you have temperature limits, ITT limits for operation. In other words, just normal operation, and then you have for start. In other words, you have a different set of limits for the start sequence. But now we have, after you, I believe, was the inadvertent cutoff and relight chart.
I don't know I was that famous.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, man, you made the books. But that chart basically details where you got to do something. And the bottom line is, a condition lever on a JetPROP or Meridian or any of these is a fully on or fully off, nothing in between, and that's all there is to it. And that was one of the things that you learned the expensive way. Unfortunately, what has to happen when that occurs is you get to do a hot section. You get to pull the engine, cut it, split it in half.
And take 3 blades.
Yeah, they basically pull 2 or 3 blades out of there, cut the blades, look for heat. If they find heat damage on one, you get to buy all of them. It's not like you can just fry these 2 and not those over there.
I will tell you a little side story to all this whole thing. So you can imagine a brand new turbine pilot trying to do everything right. If you're a guy that grew up on the farm, you never burn the engine. I don't know if that concept makes sense or not. It's the worst thing to do.
Right.
If you burn up the engine, you just lost a crop. So it's all this guilt is on me. I'm just like devastated. Anybody would be if they had that big a bill, but on top of that, because of
there's a pride, and your emotional health took a trauma hit.
And so I get on the phone. Finally, I find a good vendor who's going to rebuild the engine for me, which is an achievement in itself, not to have to mortgage your firstborn, which that's a whole nother story. But I finally get on the phone with his engineer, and he's walking me through it, and he says, he had a name for it, but you probably know, but he says, "Did you have the flame out?" I said, What do you mean? He says, "Did the flames come out of the exhaust?" And I said, "Well, not that I noticed." He said, "Oh, it's a very spectacular event. You wouldn't have missed it." And that was the first time I laughed in about 2 weeks, with him. And he made me feel comfortable. And they really took care of me at that shop. That was a rare event, considering everything else that had gone wrong.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, the thing about turbines, I think you can operate a JetPROP on just maybe slightly more than you can operate a Mirage, piston versus turbine. But if things go wrong in that piston, you're probably going to buy some cylinders and something. Things go wrong in that turbine, the numbers can skyrocket.
Yeah.
And really, you kind of got to be, if you're going to operate a turbine, you really need good training to know how to do it. The second part is you need to be prepared for something financially prepared to write a big check in case something goes wrong. And some people aren't prepared, and they get that shock factor. And the other side of it is just get good training so you know exactly what's going down.
Right.
Yeah. All right, let's go back into your history for a little bit, because there's some of this I remember us talking about in the past. But you really did come from a farming, agriculture, agrarian background.
Yeah, we're still farmers today.
Yeah.
I grew up on a farm, 4th generation rice and crawfish farmer. My brother and I started crawfish farming when we were in college.
Crawfish farming.
That's we were pioneers back then. Now everybody does it, but all our neighbors. But back then it was a rare thing. I mean, it's still rare outside of Louisiana, but it's fairly common now. But this was back in the 80s, and we started farming, and we both decided we wanted to make a living. Got out of college. Need to sell our product, so I got in a pickup truck and drove to Dallas, started selling to restaurants, and I was the truck driver, chief bottle washer, salesman.
Salesman?
Yeah, the whole deal.
The whole thing.
And over time we built a company and had a bunch of trucks on the road delivering crawfish, and we need to be in, that was a seasonal business. Crawfish farming is, so it lasts about 5 months out of the year. The harvest and availability does, but so what else are you going to do with refrigerated trucks? You're going to sell other seafood, and that became Frugé Seafood Company that's based in Grand Prairie, Texas, and we serve all of Texas, from low end to high end restaurants primarily.
Yep.
From the oyster bar to the really high end places, and of course, then I had to travel back and forth, and always wanted to be in aviation. My dad was an ag pilot. We used to have a crop dusting service back in the 60s and 70s. I was a wing hop up on the wing and load the airplanes.
Yeah.
And, I started flying when I was about 13. And wanted to go in the military. I always wanted to be a fighter pilot like everybody else, but like
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I'd done all. But I mean, I really was going to do that. I was, and going to the Air Force Academy, the whole deal. And started taking out physicals. I find out I got almost complete hearing loss in my left ear. Well, you'll never fly fighters. You might fly a
tankers
bus
or
whatever. But and that was just like so found a new career. But I didn't know about helicopters though, Joe. That might have been what I should have done.
I hate to say it, but the Army is very stringent medically speaking. Yeah, you wouldn't with no hearing or limited hearing in one ear, you'd have been out. But
yeah. Well, anyway,
only the cool guys get to be an Army helicopter pilot. Just letting you know.
You.
Yeah. Well, no.
But anyway, I started traveling back and forth a lot, and said, I wonder if you can. I didn't know. You got to imagine I was drive a truck, right? My dad flew ag planes, but you don't go more than 30 miles away, and never above 500 feet. So we're gonna see if we can actually travel in a plane, and bought a little Piper, started training in it, loved it. Flew a Bonanza, an A36 for 15 years. And
good airplane.
Great airplane. Traveled all over the place with that thing.
Yeah.
Raised my family in those two airplanes, really.
Yeah. All the time. That hub of Grand Prairie, Texas, down to southern Louisiana.
Right.
That's your bread. That's your milk run that you got.
That's my milk run. Yeah.
That's your milk run,
back
and that's
forth. I was a commuter, really. I'd fly over there, work 3 days, come home.
Yeah.
I lived there.
The airplane became
I just didn't
your
want to
life.
move to the big city. I'm a country boy.
And you got work to do in the crawdad farm.
Yeah, I can't move the farm. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we built that up and had we have a great business, great farm, keeps growing. We keep adding property, and somewhere along the way, somebody says, "Why don't you ever do anything with the rice?" I said, "What do you mean? I'm doing stuff with rice. We raise, 2,000 acres of rice. We grow. If we have a good crop, that's about 10 million pounds of grain. What are you talking about?"
And by that you mean that it's a crawdad farm,
yes,
seasonally, and it's a rice field.
Well, rice and crawfish are sort of, at least in most traditional, they just go well together.
Yeah,
rice is an aquatic grass. 1 year it's a rice farm. The next year it's a crawfish farm, and they rotate back and forth.
Yeah, it's a perfect.
Yeah, they're working in good rotation. The leftover biomass from the rice is basically becomes the
Food
perfect environment for the crawfish. They don't necessarily eat the rice; they eat all the organisms that
live in there. And then the crawdads eat, poop, make great fertilizer for rice the next year.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
We harvesting crawfish, if is a 6-month project. You do it daily. We harvest them, we clean them, we grade them, we ship them all over the place. Primarily, like I said, through our trucks, but we do have a website, CajunCrawfish.com. You can buy it online. We ship it to you wherever you are. But we had never done any value added to the rice crop, and I didn't really see a need to, but someone asked a question and I happened to be in the right mood about it or something. It was almost like a challenge. What really happened was my brother's, let me qualify a couple of things. So my brother's the farmer and I'm the salesman. That's what I always tell people. I run the business side of things, and he and I disagree on most things, but we're a perfect partnership.
Yes.
Okay, because he does his thing very well. I do my thing, and we're yin and yang when that comes to that. The price of rice had collapsed to some unprofitable number. It was the worst situation I had seen since we had been farming. And if you don't know a farmer, I'm going to tell you something about them. You cannot tell them they can't plant. It's like telling a retriever they can't retrieve. They will plant.
Right.
They have to. It's just a good farmer will plant the crop. That's just what it's in the DNA. So I bring him into the office. Hey, look at the numbers. This is terrible. There's no way, we got to do something different. He just, we have a big argument. He storms out, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking at the accountant. I'm like, what do I want to do with this guy? He's crazy, whatever. And, it was that situation. And the accountant says, I wonder if you could make vodka out of this stuff. Just on a whim, I'm like,
yeah.
I wonder if you can. I literally knew nothing about it. And I literally turned to my computer and I Googled something, whiskey still, or who knows what I Googled. And it turns out there's a whole craft industry that pops up on the screen. And there's a craft distillers conference in 6 weeks. Well, I got an airplane.
Let's go. I'm
going.
Yeah.
I'm there. And I'm walking around this place, and I'm as naive as you can be to that industry. And I'm asking people about rice, and over, one after another. Rice? Wait, there's anything with rice? Never heard about rice. What the hell you do with rice? I don't know what rice is. And so I went to all the little classes that they have at these conferences, and one guy was the marketing expert. And you got to be different. You got to be different. You got to be different. That's what they all said, So, well, nobody knows anything about rice, and you got to be different. There might be something here.
I got a lot of rice.
I got a lot of rice, So I start asking more questions, and I come to realize, like on a serious note, I'm kind of half joking about all this, but then I kind of start to get a little serious about it, and I realized there's no such thing as an American-style rice anything. It doesn't exist on the shelves at that time. Not on a commercial scale. There's no vodka, there's no whiskey, there's, of course you can't make rum, but, there's no spirit that's made out of rice in the American style, not of a successful brand. And, if you're paying attention to whiskey circles, the bourbon boom has been happening for probably, I don't know when it started, but that could be argued, but it's still in
motion.
Still in motion. Maybe slowing down a little bit post-COVID, but it's still there, still very popular. And there's no such thing as rice whiskey. Whiskey is booming. I'm starting to figure these things out. Normally, if you get into something in the middle of the boom, that's probably not a good idea, by the way, because you're too late by the time you get to market. But I said, well, there's no, we might have a whole chance to make a whole new category here. I don't know. I was in a great place with my business, cash flow, whatever.
Yeah, you got margin to spare.
Yeah, I was playing with house money, I guess, and we're gonna do a small scale experimental distillery, and made some great friends along the way. People that were associated with really good brands that people would know, and turns out I had been selling crawfish to a couple of them and didn't even know it when I went to visit them. Then so they took a little extra interest in me, and
there's a story here. Yeah,
helped me out a little more, and it turns out you can make a very good, amazing whiskey out of rice. We've won national awards from coast to coast.
Yep.
We do blind tastings against the best whiskey in the world.
And win.
And win. People are shocked by it all the time. My daughter is our she really runs the company, I guess you could say, in a lot of ways. I do the production side, but she's the front of the house, marketing, all that. And she's got this thing she does, and she calls it the Millet Lean. She says, people look at it and say, this is rice, because they're like, they can't believe it.
Right.
They can't make the process, that they can't believe that it's that good. This sounds stupid, but it's my favorite whiskey.
Sure.
Not just because I made it, but it's really,
well, I don't believe you, and you're going to have to send me a bottle, and I'll let you know. Okay.
I've got to learn to start bringing that around with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I have a bottle right here now. But
training's going to go a lot better.
The brand, by the way, the brand itself was sort of the culmination of all our efforts of our whole career, if that makes sense. Everything's in the bottle. So the brand is called J.T. Millick, M-E-L-E-C-K. John Millick was my great-great-uncle John. He's immigrated from Germany, and he and his 3 brothers and 2 sisters, I think there were 6 of them total, but 5 of them ended up on our farm. They founded it, and he was like the patriarch. My grandfather was raised by them. Now, he's a Frugé, they were Millicks, but only one of the women got married, and there was only one child. And Uncle John was my grandfather's favorite uncle, pretty much raised him because his dad ran off or something.
Yeah.
And all I heard about as a child was Uncle John, this, that, and the other. So when it came time to build this brand, they were very good about helping us discover our story. And I had, like the story's right there. It's us. It's the farm.
That's right. That's right.
Never thought about it that way. Like we were going to name it something really cool. I don't know what that would have been, but we turned it up. So if you see our bottle, there's a big crawfish in the background, J.T. Millick, some rice growing out. Sort of tells the whole story.
It's a great story. One of the great things I love about the P846 world is it's really a bunch of great businessmen and businesswomen that are entrepreneurial. I mean, in this case, you're not really the whiskey guy. You don't know a lot about it. Probably enjoy it to a degree somewhere, somehow. But how do I take a resource that I have extra of and use it in some other way? But basically just made a whole nother profit center for you, or hopefully it'll become that way.
Yeah, my grandfather used to call that making something out of nothing.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's a farmer mentality.
It's
like you don't throw anything away, you repurpose it. That's just the way they did it.
And there's something about the mind of the person that migrates to this community, of the efficiency-driven. They value their time. They're business people through and through. They're people that know how to hit an obstacle and climb over, go under, go around, figure it some way over, under, around it to get to the other side. They're just people that are very interesting, and you're one of them. I mean, who would have thought crawdads, whiskey, rice, fish, putting all this stuff together, but here it is. Here it is. It's kind of a cool thing. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, when I was 20 years old, I can distinctly remember our favorite thing was on a Sunday afternoon when football's playing. You go down to the place where they're serving barbecue and crawdads, and you get a plate of crawdads this big. Yep. It'll take you 2 hours to eat it, but that's fine because you're watching football game.
Right.
And here you are with crawdads. It's good stuff. I mean, that's all there is to it. It's good stuff. So let's talk about your JetPROP for a little bit.
Okay.
You've owned it for 11 years now.
11 years. Yeah.
Good airplane?
Fantastic airplane. Just absolutely amazing. We did our training today, and you made me do a new maneuver that I never would have done on my own.
Yeah.
This thing climbing at 110 knots, doing 3,000 feet a minute, and it goes. I thought we'd stall out about 6,000 feet.
Yeah.
I don't know where it stops.
You know, it's amazing. One of the things I like doing on recurrent training, especially when I have somebody like you that's been here 10 times.
Yeah.
You know, you've been in and out of KC Aviation.
It's never routine though.
No, that's right.
You always bring some new stuff.
I was going to say. Yeah. People in this market tend to do what they do every day very well all the time.
Yeah.
When they come for recurrent training. But what my job is go do things they don't always do, or at least introduce something new every time. All I did was say, hey, let's climb at 100 knots at full power. Now, can you do that? And the answer is yes. And we talked about as we're climbing up at, this ridiculous climb rate. Number one, you got a high deck angle, and you can't see over the nose very good. It's not good. Any passengers in the back are not going to be comfortable.
This is not something you do.
No, you're going to be at a 12 to 15 degree deck angle, which doesn't sound like much, but it's a lot. It doesn't feel comfortable at all.
Yeah.
And your flight path marker is at about 10 degrees up. I mean, literally the flight path marker is at 10 degrees, which means your angle of climb, the airplane is climbing at 10 degrees up. That's a shockingly good climb rate. I'm telling people ask me all the time, like if you want to come out of the mountains and you want to come out of Aspen, or you want to go to Eagle, Colorado, or one of these places where there's a mountain right there, and I want to get over the mountain, JetPROP, oh my gosh, it's fantastic because the angle of climb as seen by the flight path marker is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And it's good on the other turbine airplanes too, but the JetPROP is that lightweight, high horsepower. You just got you got options. That's right. And if you're going from southern Louisiana to Grand Prairie, Texas on a routine basis, it's the way to go.
Yeah. It's the thing about the JetPROP, it's so capable, you have to force yourself to remember to check the weather. Because there's almost, except for icing, serious. It's hardly a time when you have to cancel a flight. I mean, it does exist. Don't get me wrong. If you got a thunderstorm front coming through, you got a straight line from one end of the coast to the other, you're going to wait. But
when you have such a capable, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like when I flew the 182 on a really long flight up to Canada here. I checked the weather the whole way back, looking for all the different things. If you're in a JetPROP, I mean, there's maybe some untidy or uncomfortable situations where the winds may be higher, and I'm going to pick a different altitude. But rarely is it. I cannot go on this flight today because of this. I'm just going to choose to do a different route, a different way, a different thing. And I mean, the JetPROP is just such a capable airplane across the board.
Right.
It's just wonderful airplane for sure.
You almost, it's pretty hard not, it's to lose to the airlines. I had to make sure I say that right. I mean, it's just because when you consider the time standing in line, going through security, all that, getting to the airport early, you take off of that plane. I mean, you're almost, I fly commercial probably once a year because we make an annual trip to Boston. And it's a long business trip, and we're going to be really, really tired on the way back. But other than that,
JetPROP everywhere.
I mean, JetPROP everywhere.
Yeah.
Coast to coast, really.
It gets, there's a place, I was thinking about this the other day as I had a flight. Matter of fact, it was on that 182 flight. I guess I had a lot of time to think because it was such a long way to go. The asset, in this case, the airframe, is so valuable in the sense that if you don't have it, you realize what you miss. In other words, what that airplane does something that you let me put it this way. If you've got a long way to go and you value your time,
it's a time machine.
You will ride in somebody's airplane.
Yeah, correct.
If you value your time, you got a long way to go, you are going to ride in somebody's airplane. The question is, whose airplane are you going to ride in? And for people in our space, I'm going to fly my own and I'm going to do it myself. Especially, without a doubt, is whenever you go out of small airport to small airport, where now you're landing in Grand Prairie, Texas, which is under the Bravo. I get it.
Correct.
But it's across the street from the place where you're putting all your fish and
Yeah,
packaging.
our building is right next door.
Literally right next door.
I intentionally put it there.
Yeah, exactly. But that's my point, is that you literally built your business around the asset of aviation, meaning you have the ability, you have the wherewithal, and if you didn't have the JetPROP, what would your life look like? And
It'd be totally different.
It would look different.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Totally different.
That's exactly right.
I likely wouldn't be doing that business anymore. I mean, it's not practical to do that commercially.
Yeah,
There's just too many last minute trips. You got to go fix this or fix that. That doesn't happen as much anymore. Now that we have a mature company with lots of good managers and whatnot. But
right.
you got to imagine back in the day, it was me and 3 other guys constantly going up there.
Constantly. Yeah.
I had my own hangar in both places at one point.
Yeah. I mean, aviation, if you look at your career and look at your life, mm-hmm. It has changed the way you do business. It changed it for the better. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's a pain in the butt. Yes, you got to get annuals and have people look at stuff, and things aren't perfect every time, and it's muddy and messy and all those kind of different things. But what would it be if that airplane wasn't there? Yeah. And what would that airplane be if it weren't a JetPROP? I mean, you could probably still be in the Bonanza world, but you're doing an oil change every 35 hours, and it looks different. It feels different. It's,
I mean, I own both, and people may not believe this, but if you do a good job of managing your JetPROP, that doesn't always hold up. But I'd like to go back and double check my numbers to make sure I know what I'm talking about. But there was a point when I'd really done a serious survey of what it cost me total to operate the JetPROP and the Bonanza, and forget the airframe, because the airframe on the JetPROP actually appreciates.
Yeah.
JetPROPs, if you don't mess things up, if you don't have these expensive things, is more efficient per mile than a Bonanza.
That's right.
Yeah.
I say it this way: if you stay on the road, if you get down in the ditch in a turbine, if you can stay on the pavement, and which you can, everybody can. There's no doubt about it. What a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful airplane.
Yep. That's hard to beat. I don't think, in fact, you can't beat it if you're just doing it from a dollars and cents point of view.
Right.
I don't think it can be beat.
I don't think you can either. Mike, thanks a bunch for being a part of KC Aviation over the years. How can people get more of you? Meaning, I've Frugé Seafood.
FrugéSeafood.com if you're a restaurant owner in Texas and looking for us. If you're looking for crawfish and you're outside of 500 miles of Louisiana, CajunCrawfish.com. And JT Millick is available in Louisiana and Texas now. Pretty much all of the big retailers in Texas, just now entering Texas.
Yeah.
So
and there's more to come, because when you get into the whiskey world, it sort of takes, you got to have a long-term future, or in other words, a long-term perspective, because you have some whiskey, it's ready to go, but most of the whiskey's coming. Meaning it's got to age, it's got to be in the barrel, it's got to do all the different things.
Every decision you make is a 6-year decision in that world. It's really odd.
And 6 years is coming up soon, in the sense that you're about to see more of JT Millick.
Correct. Yeah.
That's right. And hopefully listeners of this, even if you're not a whiskey aficionado, well, this is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks a bunch for being a part of the Malibu Guru Podcast.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Hey, like I said, a bunch of cool guys that are in the PA-46 world. Mike's one of them. You never know. Whiskey, crawdads, fish. But, the airplane really did change Mike's life, and it changed it for the better. And I hope your PA-46 or TBM or King Air, whatever you happen to be flying, helps you. Hope if you ever need to go to recurrent training, we're here at KC Aviation. We'd love to be a part of your future, just like I flew recurrent training with Mike today. Joe Casey with KC Aviation, signing off.